Welcome to the DTF Printing Podcast. I'm Adrienne Palmer, Editor-in-Chief of DTF.com. I'm here with Tom Rauen, CEO of 1-800-T-Shirts in Dubuque, Iowa. Today we're talking about how Tom went from heat pressing in his basement to running a multi-million-dollar apparel business, the importance of connecting with your local community, and why you should find your DTF tribe. Hey, Tom.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. Thanks for hopping on. So let's talk about this full circle moment. You started your company in your parents' basement, heat pressing shirts, and now here we are talking about heat pressing shirts in tandem with DTF technology. Can you share, in more detail, your background and your business's connection to direct-to-film today?
Yes. So, like you said, we started off in my parents' basement, and we were heat pressing T-shirts and sweatshirts. But we were also heat pressing, I don't know if you've ever seen this, but sports photo balls. And so we take basketballs or baseballs or volleyballs or whatever, and we were pressing photos onto those as awards and memento type things for sports teams. So a little different heat press. So we were doing both of those. And quickly the business outgrew the 12 by 12 foot room that I was in. And we ended up leasing some space and progressed there from, the heat press up into a manual screen printing press and embroidery machine, then eventually up to an automatic screen printing press and many more embroidery machines after that, to now where we're at, we're operating on a 35,000 square foot facility, multiple automatic screen printing presses, multiple embroidery machines. And then, of course, we've got the heat press area and the direct-to-film. And it's amazing how, so the business, we kind of outgrew the capacity that we were able to heat press at the beginning where we needed to add screen printing in. But now the capabilities have swung in the other direction, I feel like, where there's so many more capabilities and things that we can do with DTF prints that we can't do on screen printing, or it's just a different application depending on the number of colors in the design, the quantities, what the customer is kind of looking for, maybe the types of apparel that it's going on and everything else. So it's kind of wild to see this come full circle and how much more, of it we're doing here in the last couple of years.
Yeah. When did you decide that it was time to bring in DTF equipment? Were you outsourcing any of that before?
Yeah. So we're still outsourcing. We're working with a variety of vendors. So we're bringing in, the transfers, and we're pressing everything in-house. So we're still not printing it actually in-house yet. And that is the next step. So hopefully in the next couple of months, we're, looking at the various vendors, we're looking at the support that's available. And also we know right now in a time when it's tough to hire and train somebody, we're going to have a full-time person dedicated to this position. So, the equipment, outlay is one thing to invest in that equipment, but we also have to invest in the staff to be able to run and support that equipment as well. And that's a big part of that investment. So that's the next step though, because we're growing, beyond what our, capacity is probably for outsourcing, where we say, we have to bring some of that control in-house on turn times, on just making adjustments, and probably a lot of the volume that we're cranking out needs to come in-house.
Yeah. It's interesting kind of deciding when you're going to go from outsourcing to in-house. And someone recently asked me, I'm printing X amount of, or I'm ordering X amount of transfers. Do you think that now it's time for me? And it's exactly what you said. It's not just about the output. It's the internal. Do we have the space? Do we have the employees? Do I have the opportunity to train? It's so much more than just the projects that you're taking in. So for you, when did that switch happen where you realized, all right, we need to have this conversation now?
Yeah, I don't know if there's a dollar amount switch, because you have to look at the full scope of it. Can you find the person to run it? How much is that going to cost you? How much is the initial equipment cost? But then besides that, you've got all the consumables. You have to buy the film, you've got the ink, you've got the maintenance and everything else that goes with it. So there's the ongoing cost of operating, that department. And I think the switch was just you know what, we've been doing this long enough, our volume is there, and there's some things that we're doing more of as far as like the print on demand with this through some of our e-commerce stores, where it's bringing that in. So like right now, if we're ordering it through another vendor, it's taking a day or two to get to us with shipping and everything else. And if something comes in and there's a color that's off or something misspelled or whatever the case is, then we're a couple more days out so like right now, I think with the volume we're doing and the amount of direct, basically print on demand that we're doing with it, we really just have to bring that control in-house. So then we're doing it on demand and we're fulfilling a lot faster for our customers. And that way, if there is an error, there's a color, something else that needs switched, we're able to easily put that into production a lot faster, not be waiting a couple of days on somebody else.
Right. Yeah. Finding that vendor that you can trust is, really paramount and can be pretty difficult to do. And even if you have that, what you might consider like the perfect vendor, there's still room for error. And if you can bring that in-house and eliminate that or, fix it within the couple hours versus that couple day turnaround, that's pretty key.
Yeah.
So speaking of vendors, for people who are maybe still considering, I'm not ready to maybe make that move that you're doing, how did you find someone that you did feel at least somewhat comfortable with to outsource so much of your work to?
So we've worked with probably about 5 or 6 different vendors. And I guess the key was like, they're all a little bit different price, and turnaround time might be a little bit different too by a day or two. But then the quality is a little different. So not all DTF is created equal, right? So I don't know if you want me to say vendor names, but like some of them, the quality is just simply a lot higher than others. Some of the colors aren't as vibrant. Some through wash testing hold up a little bit differently. And so that also goes into and that's fine. And that works good because there are some events which I would call a one-time event, like a bar crawl. And so that bar crawl, we know like we can use maybe the cheaper or less expensive, the economy DTF. But if it's something that's going to be out there going to retail much higher end, then we don't want to be using the economy print. We want to make sure we're going up to the best, and they all have a little bit different hand feel to them. And so sometimes it depends on the customer. The customer might want that a softer hand or the more plastic or rubbery hand. So it kind of depends. So each vendor has their own application. And again, it kind of depends on colors too. Some of them have colors that really just pop off there, depending on the golds, or if you're trying to get like a full metallic or something like that. So really it's just trying to figure out like, what is the design? What is the application? What is it going on? And, what's going to be the best vendor for that?
Okay. So as you make this transition, you mentioned, you're obviously talking to your team, you're checking out your space. And in terms of doing your research and talking to vendors, what does that process look like, or what does it look like currently for you as you're making this big decision and big purchase?
It's not easy. So, because when you talk to a salesperson at a company, they're going to tell you all the great things. A few of them might tell you some of the nuances that come with equipment and whatnot. And I find it best to get this blend of the expertise from that salesperson, the support that they're going to be offering, but then also reaching out to the community, on a lot of the Facebook groups and different things, and finding people that are using them in their shop every day, maybe going on a shop tour and seeing what it's like actually working and what it's like when it's not working and what that downtime looks like. Because no matter what the equipment is, whether it's screen printing equipment, embroidery, direct to garment, direct to film, there's always going to be things that happen. There's a learning curve to using the equipment. There's some learning curve on the maintenance, and you want to know what that looks like so you're not going to be in for any surprises. It would be fantastic if everything worked, 100% perfectly out of the box. But the reality is when we're dealing with technology and we're dealing with a lot of different variables, especially depending on where it's at in the shop space, if it's in a climate controlled environment, all the other things that go with it, things are bound to go wrong. So I think the better you can be prepared for the ups and downs and know that going in, the easier it's going to be, because your expectations, you just don't want to set your expectations too high or have your expectations set wrong, that like this is going to be this magic bullet that's going to make everything be perfect and like your print day go absolutely perfect.
Yeah. With those anticipations, kind of what have you thought through in your head, like potential challenges or things that you might have to troubleshoot with this change?
So it's what is the ongoing maintenance? How long does that take? If we are down, what's the backup plan? Are we going back to our vendors? How does that look? Is there easy support to call? Is there an 800 number? Do you have somebody available that you can text or do, FaceTime with to help with, some of those maintenance things or support? What is the availability of supplies for ink or for film? Do we have to worry about supply chain? Is there redundancy with that? Do we have multiple suppliers so we don't run into this issue of everything's working good, but we're just out of film or we're out of ink or, whatever the case is. So there's a lot of variables to consider and think like, okay, what is the contingencies? What are the backup plans? What is everything else? So when something isn't working right, you're not sitting there stuck and not being able to deliver to the customer, because ultimately the customer does not care like what the excuse is. They want their shirts, right? So you got to be able to figure out a way to get them to them and not let what you're doing internally like affect what's happening for your customer. You still got to be able to deliver.
Right. They're not, the printer's down. Okay. Like, when am I getting my shirts?
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really important that you're talking about all these different variables. As you said, like, it's not easy. There's so much that goes into it. But what I thought was really important, what you said, is that, you're getting on the Facebook groups, you're talking to other print shops. I think it's so key to go to another print shop. If you haven't been to another print shop, walk through someone else's, floor plan, get an idea for what other people are doing. But for you, you're a multi-million-dollar shop. When you're reaching out to people or connecting with them because they brought equipment in-house, are you trying to match in terms of this company looks like me, or this is the company that I want to look like in the future? How do you work on that?
So I think the cool thing is, of our industry is like no two companies are the same. And we see that when, people are trying to do pricing, when they're trying to hire and build their teams, when they're laying out their shop, everyone's got a little different configuration. And so what I've found that has worked really well throughout the years is we want to be ourselves. We want to be our own identity. And we want it, a lot of times doing it our own way, we've done things different than the norm or different than a lot of other people in the industry. And we found that's worked really well. So when we go into a shop or when we talk to other people, what I want is just like one little nugget I can take and make us 1% better. Or so I'm not looking at the whole setup. I'm not looking at everything they're doing and try to copy, basically copy and replicate that here. What I'm looking for is like, what is one little area that they're just crushing it on? And if we can take that little part and plug that in, then that makes us better. So maybe that's like on the staging area. Maybe it's on the fulfillment on the backside. After they get everything printed, maybe it's, way that they're logging their art files and getting those synced up for the machine. So there's a lot of different variables. So if you take every variable from, working with the customer to order entry to, placing that order with the vendor, getting the goods in, and then walking that through production, like you start breaking down all those steps. What I'm looking for is like, who's doing each step the best, and then take that little nugget from that particular shop and combine them all together. So we have this like hybrid of the best of each stage. And then, draw upon that.
Yeah, super smart. And that not, there are no shops that are like totally alike. It's like impossible to find that, because even if you find someone that, oh, this actually looks like 1-800 t-shirts. Okay, but we're in a completely different region. So pricing is different, shipping is different, salaries are different. Definitely varies there. Okay, so you also offer screen printing. You talked about embroidery. You offer promo products. Where do you see DTF fitting into the entire apparel space and kind of the future of DTF, considering it's very much in its infancy?
I think there's a lot of areas for it, and we're finding more and more applications for it as we continue to just innovate with it a little bit, push the boundaries of what's possible, and just like really dive into it. And I think even the more that we get it out there for our customers. So at the beginning, it was kind of just, we were filling in some, if we had a misprinted garment or one that was on back order from like a screen printing order or a web store that we were doing, we were just kind of filling in the gap with it. Well, now there's some cases where we're leading with it as, the actual go-to decoration method. I know some other shops have completely gotten rid of their screen printing equipment and they went direct, all in on this. So I think it's this mix of like, what is the garment it's going on? What's the print location? Because that makes a difference too. If we're doing a bunch of hoods or sleeves or something like that, like maybe it's easier just to press a bunch instead of loading them up on the press, like some of these different print areas instead of just, the full front. What's the number of colors and then the quantity? What's the detail of the design? Oh, there's so many different factors to put in. So I think it's finding that, like, what are these factors and like, where does this fit in? And is it on, certain products, bags, or hoodies or different things, or what is that? So I think it's just like that extra tool, that before we were doing this, there was probably a lot of jobs we were turning down or not doing, or really having to switch what we were doing from an artwork perspective to make it fit our print capabilities and the budget that the customer was looking for.
Are you sharing any of this with the customer? I know you said they don't care if we're down, but do they care about the process?
Most of them don't care about the process. What they do care is, it's going to be a good quality print that's going to last. You could probably give, I would say, like 95% of customers a screen printed sweatshirt and a DTF sweatshirt, and like 95% of the customers are not going to either know the difference or care there's a difference. However, there's that small percentage that they love the look and feel of a screen, like the plastisol ink on there, and some love the look and feel of a water-based ink where it's soft hand, you're not feeling anything. And now we're seeing some love this look and feel of a DTF, transfer pressed on the shirt, just because it's a different thing. So you're going to have a lot that everyone's customer base is a little different, right? But the more we're seeing it in retail, if you go to the mall or any of these big retail stores, and I'm seeing DTF all over the place. And of course, we know when we see it, it's like, all right, I know exactly how this was done. That changes, the consumer buying behavior in a way, or their expectations of what they're getting.
Right. And then a little, just to go back to that conversation you're having, depending on, how many, job or how many runs is this, how many shirts are we printing, the quality, time. Who's having that conversation? Are you having that conversation? Is it the production manager? What does that process look like when you get that job in?
Yeah, so it's a mix between the sales rep, the designers in some cases, And then they have an idea. We've got some parameters set up of if it's a certain quantity, a certain number of colors, we're going DTF. We're not screen printing that unless there's specific colors that they need. Maybe it's the really bright neons or something that we just can't get the colors as vibrant as we would with plastisol ink. Also might, depending on the detail, depends on the customer. What's, like I said earlier, is it for bar crawl or birthday party, or is it something going into retail? Like, what is the end application? And then where does it fit in the picture with their budget? And that's so a lot of different factors, and not something simple that we can just, write SOP on and say like, oh, if it's this color, if it's this, here's what we're doing. We have kind of a rough guideline on that, but everyone knows it's pretty fluid because there's so many different variables between the design, the ink colors, and then the garment that it's going on as well. So when we take all those variables and mesh it together, it's like, what is the best application for this to get the best final product?
Right. And you have, 30 plus employees currently?
Yes.
Yeah. So will you be hiring more as you add the DTF equipment, or will you be training?
Yeah, most likely we'll have to add one or two.
Well, with heat pressing currently, and there's not much, training that goes into that. So I imagine that the typical, printer on your shop floor, that's just something that they were able to pick up quite quickly. But with DTF, there is a lot more that goes into a digital printer. I mean, what are you looking for in terms of hiring? Are you looking for someone who has specific background in inkjet, or do you think you're going to hire someone who's more in the screen printing space?
We're looking for someone probably more in the art space. So maybe a graphic designer, but doesn't want to necessarily be sitting behind the computer all day, and they want to get their hands dirty a little bit and dive in there. So I feel like it's someone with a graphic design background or an art background, because they can adjust the artwork, they can set up the art files, they can do all that stuff. But then they also understand the technicalities of, a printer and, maybe how to maintenance it and get their hands dirty a little bit, putting the shirts, loading the shirts and doing different things, troubleshooting. So they're kind of this hybrid of like graphic designer, but then possibly pressing as well. But, we can get high school kids, college kids, or, like part-time stay-at-home moms or retired people to run the heat press. But you need a little bit more technical skill and a little bit more probably the eye of an artist or a graphic designer to know like what's going from the screen and what's coming out on the film. Do those colors match? Is it the colors that were intended? So that's the technical part where I think it just needs a little bit higher caliber employee. Right.
And speaking of employees, you and I were talking a little bit about this, and this would not fit the bill for anything we just discussed, but virtual assistants. How is that coming into play with your business and hiring, and what are you using virtual assistants for? Obviously not running a printer, but there's a lot of other things that go on in the business that you can utilize a VA for.
Yeah, so we're just looking at ways that we continually scale up, but then also scale down during slower seasons without having, the overhead of full-time payroll, all the benefits, things like that. And then right now, especially in our area, it's just really hard to find good, talented, people that, the workforce is so short right now. And it's hard, I think, in our industry or, our size of business to compete with some of these big, a Fortune 500 company that's offering, just crazy health benefits and days off and all this stuff. Like as a small business, we can only compete so much on that. So we are looking at outsourcing with virtual assistants, in the Philippines, and that's helping with, artwork, production mock-ups, proofs, maybe sourcing some promotional products, some order entry, things like that. So just kind of helping as an aid to, keep us efficient, keep us going, and again, like able to scale up, but then also scale back during our slower seasons.
Yeah, it's really interesting. You're not the first person to discuss that with me in the last couple weeks. So I'm really intrigued and interested to see, how other businesses are utilizing that. We've had the conversation about ChatGPT, how you can use that for your business, or Midjourney for art. And so it's like, okay, another virtual aid, that you're not having someone in-house doing something. It's interesting to me. Another thing I find interesting about you and your business is your connection with the community. And one event you do is the Mac and Cheese Dubuque the Mac and Cheese Fest, Dubuque's Mac and Cheese Fest. Is that right? Yeah. Can you share more about this, how it positively affects your business and impacts the community you're in?
Yeah. So I started Mac and Cheese Fest in 2017. And we started, so our first child was born prematurely at 33 weeks. And we were looking for a community event that we could do for a fundraiser to raise money for the University of Iowa Stead Family Children's Hospital. And if you're familiar with Iowa football at all, the University of Iowa Hawkeyes, after the first quarter, it's the hospital where everybody does the wave, and they wave to the kids in the children's hospital right outside the football stadium. So I came up with this idea. It's kind of this hybrid of like a beer fest and a food fest all in one. So we typically get 10 to 12 chefs doing all sorts of different types of mac and cheese. So it's like lobster mac and cheese, Philly cheesesteak mac and cheese, bacon mac and cheese, brisket mac and cheese, like just all sorts of stuff. And they're competing for awards. We've got the Gold Noodle Award and all sorts of other stuff. And then 10 or 12 breweries sampling craft beer. And it's this big party, usually 800 to 1,000 people attending, live band. And we've been able to, since we started, every year raise somewhere between $25,000 and $30,000 for the children's hospital, which is absolutely phenomenal. So how does this tie into the business? Well, everybody that comes to the festival gets a swag bag with, the mac and cheese t-shirt. Then we have a whole swag shop set up where we've got like 8 different designs of like I Heart Mac and Cheese and all sorts of different puns that go with mac and cheese. And, it's like sweet dreams are made of cheese instead of sweet. And then, just all sorts of crazy shirts. And so people love the shirts. They love the apparel. And what this does is it ties us, the community, to other people who are passionate about giving back, to other people that may be affected by, having premature babies, also affected by anyone that's been to the University of Iowa Children's Hospital. And because, we're supporting the same, type of people. The other thing, we've got, the 10 or 12 food vendors that own restaurants, and then the 10 or 12 breweries. We're creating a connection with them because we're doing something all together as in doing this for the community. So like those are strong customers of ours now. And then all the attendees, the 800 to 1,000 people there, like they're partaking in an experience and a memory. And when you relate that fun experience and that fun memory, not only to the event itself, but to the company that's hosting and kind of the main sponsor of the event, it just creates that good like social awareness and community vibe and everything else that goes with it. So it just has like all these cool factors that go along with it, and just creates this kind of, how can you not love mac and cheese and the craft beer? And then when you put that together, that the whole thing's actually a fundraiser for the children's hospital, like this is amazing. Like, where do I sign up? Like, this event is awesome. So it's absolutely a blast to host and be able to do, and to be able to see people making those memories and having fun, whether it's with family and friends or coworkers or whatever. And so we just look forward to doing it every year.
So awesome, Tom. What can go wrong? Beer, cheese, and philanthropy. I mean, like, yeah, sign me up. It's so awesome that you're doing that, and it's so awesome that it's been so successful for you. But I think the key on the business side is those are your customers, not just the people that you're connecting with in terms of vendors or even the space that you're in, but all of those attendees. They get a shirt. Wow, this is a great shirt. This is so cool. You just listed off all the fun phrases. It's not just your typical event shirt that, just has the name and the year or something. They're unique. And then now they're connected to you in a heartfelt way. I always, t-shirts remind you of an experience, usually.
It is.
And so if you're connecting it that way, I think it's awesome. What tips would you give for someone listening who's like, oh, I think I could do something like that in my own community, or maybe, planning an event is really difficult. So maybe this is a twofold question. One, do you have an event team, and what does that look like? And two, how can someone do something, maybe not even to this level, but at least get their feet wet and getting connected with their community?
Yeah. So I think it's find something you're passionate about that you want to do. Maybe it's mac and cheese, maybe it's something else. We also host a trail running event here in our community where we donate all the money to the local trails and conservation. And so that's another passion of mine. And so that's easy to do. And, we incorporate t-shirts into that as well for all the runners to get. But I think it's finding that passionate thing, finding the charity to tie in. So, because that's going to be your why and the driving force behind, doing it. And then as far as the team to do it. So really a lot of the planning and coordinating is just me and my wife. And then once we get closer to the event, usually the week before the event, then we start bringing in other people on the team. And then the night of the event, it's all hands on deck. Okay, we really need to round up all the volunteers now. So it's all, kind of hands on deck there of, people taking the tickets and checking people in and working the merch stand and just kind of helping the vendors out, everything else in between. So there is some coordination that it takes to put it together, but you can also, if you have a small team and you're I have no clue what we're doing here, it's easy to pull together different volunteers. So a lot of local high schools and colleges, they have philanthropy groups. They have different service organizations that need a certain amount of volunteer hours. And so they've got resources and people that you can pull together. You also have other local, the nonprofit or whoever you're supporting, usually they have a board or maybe they have staff or they have a bunch of followers that they can put out the call to say, listen, we need volunteers to help out for this specific thing. So just because you're sponsoring and leading the way for this event doesn't mean you have to 100% carry the weight on your shoulders. You can rely on that charity and other resources in your community to bring it all together. And once you bring it all together, that's where the magic happens of making it a community event, because it's not just you doing it. It's bringing other people in and they feel good and they want to be part of that experience. They want to be part of, helping raise that money and awareness for whatever that passion or that cause is. So it's just a win-win-win. And a lot of it is, to me, I think, is coming up with the idea and doing something that's different than what everybody else is doing. So one of the reasons for the big success of Mac and Cheese Fest, to be able to raise $25,000 or $30,000 with one event in a, fairly small town is pretty big deal, where I've talked to people yeah, we did this big event, we planned it, we took all year to do it, and we raised $3,000. And they're how, it would take us 10 years to do what you do in 1 year. And I said, well, it's got to be unique and different. It can't be another golf outing, right? Or if it is going to be another golf outing, it's got to be a unique golf outing. So one of the local charities here does, they do winter golf on ice where they are drilling the holes in the ice, and you're going around and everyone's dressed up in costumes, and their golf cart is a sled that they put together, and it's it's a cooler full of beer, right? And they're going around on ice, golfing, and there's prizes and there's music and there's all this fun stuff. So like, I'm like, that's the golf outing I want to go to. I don't
Yeah.
like been to enough of the other ones. So it's like, what is everyone else doing? And find that unique hook, find something different that's going to catch your attention. And that's how you make a really successful event that's going to be fun. It's going to be, shareable and memorable among friends and family and coworkers and everything else. And you're going to be able to make a big impact with the awareness and the amount of money you're able to raise about whatever charity that you're doing it for.
Yeah. And I like what you also said, something that you're passionate about. With you, mac and cheese and beer, and then also trail running, you're looking forward to it. You're going to be invested, you're going to be involved. And that also helps you find something maybe even unique about it, because you've been to a lot of trail races. You've been to maybe some, breweries and seen what events they're doing. You're like, how can I make a twist on this to make it even more fun for me and bring more people in? I think that's really cool. And then you also host events at your shop where customers are kind of getting a behind the scenes tour of what it looks like to print their product. They can even, print their own shirts. How does that work, and how has it affected customer relationships?
Big time. So this is like the easiest thing to do, and probably one of the most overlooked things that companies probably, might not be doing that they could easily add in. And if you think about it, it is basically the HGTV version of, dirty jobs, or the how's this done DIY, like behind the scenes. Everyone wants to see like, how is this made, right? Like, and that's why those shows are so viral, because it's like, you want to see behind the scenes of like, all right, how is this being made? And if you look on a big scale, so one of the factories here in Dubuque, Iowa is John Deere. And they're hosting factory tours at John Deere because like people want to see like, how is this big John Deere tractor made?
Yeah.
And if you look around, anywhere in the United States, big companies do what's called a factory tour because they know like it creates some brand loyalty. It gives customers a behind the scenes look of how like, the stuff's going made. And I think of like, again, going back to the craft beer, there's brewery tours, like, right? Like you go to, whether it's Budweiser or Coors or even, some smaller craft breweries, it's sign up for a brewery tour and get this behind the scenes, get to talk directly with the brewer themselves and sample and all this stuff. And the same goes in a lot of different manufacturing segments as well. And so you look at it and you say, all right, we're doing a factory tour, like, and whether your shop is 2,000 square feet or 10,000 square feet or 35,000 square feet, it doesn't really matter. You can call it a factory, right? It's just a name. It's just a name. So it could be shop tour, factory tour, whatever. But what it is it is the behind the scenes sneak peek tour of your shop. It's giving the information of how do we go from step one of them coming in or emailing or calling to the very end product, to it getting delivered to them. And when customers see that, they're tied to that experience. They appreciate the work that goes in because they realize you're not just like, hitting the print button and then like this t-shirt pops out completely done.
Right.
When they realize all the steps involved and all the different variables and everything that's happening, they have a new appreciation for what you're doing, the prices you're charging for it, everything else that goes into it. So having that shop tour, our goal is actually to make the tour so good and to market it so much that on TripAdvisor, if you were going to type in our town and you went to things to do, you know how that shows like local tours and stuff? We want our tour to definitely be in the top 10 or top 5. Like it would be, how cool it would be for the screen printing shop behind the scenes tour to be like number one thing to do in your town. Right? Because if you think about like that's where you get the idea. So if you want to see other businesses or other industries doing that, just click on different cities, put things to do, and look at people that are doing the behind the scenes tours. Like sometimes you even see it with restaurants, different manufacturing things, like whatever it is. So like, what is that behind the scenes tour that you can take and you can replicate, some and model after what they're doing, maybe in other industries. and going through, and all you're doing is it's a simple format of, you're telling the company history, you're telling it's the origin story of how you got started and how you got from where you got started to where you are now and maybe where you're going. And then it's the, ABC 1, 2, 3 of step 1, here's what we do. Step 2, here's what we do next. Step 3, here's what we do next. All the way to the end to where they can get hands-on. We set them up on the manual press and let them print their own t-shirt. And that's their keepsake takeaway. And then make sure all along the lines on that shop tour is areas that they can take pictures and share it on social. So anytime you can get that user-generated content, that goes a million miles, right? And so that's a big thing. That's an easy marketing thing that a lot of people in our industry have not dove into yet, but it's really easy to add on and can be a big win.
Yeah, that's so cool. I love the TripAdvisor thing. How unique. But when you're done, do you finish in your showroom, and are you showing them other, this is what we're selling right now, this is what we can do? How do you get them at the end to make sure that they're all in on, buying their next set of whatever?
Yeah, so we finish in the HR office with a job application. So anyone that was really good at anyone that was good at printing, they were like, all right, Ed, you're hired. No, but it could be used as a recruitment tool as well. But no, what we do is we finish in the showroom. So they're seeing the product up there. A lot of them are asking questions. We make sure our sales staff is on hand. But then we also finish, so they get the t-shirt that they printed, and we try to figure out another little like swag bag to end the tour with. So they're leaving with something else that's memorable. So we're trying to find little touch points along the way to make it memorable and to just surprise them and give them that wow factor.
Yeah. I'm just trying to think, is this any of this out of pocket for you? Like, are you offering any food and beverages? Are you doing this during normal store hours? Are you doing this on the weekend? Because it seems like a pretty easy, no frills, no major cost to you. So it would seem like it would be an easy thing for any business owner to consider.
Yeah, so it's been a wide range. We do everything from youth groups, 4-H, Boy Scouts, preschools, daycares. And so like those, it's usually during the day. It's pretty simple. And those we actually, they're paying for the tour. So they're paying, it might be, I don't have it in front of me, it might be $10 or $25 per attendee. And that's covering the cost of the shirt and, staff's, time to do the tour and stuff like that. So, it's not completely free on some of those. And then some other ones where we know if it's a group of business leaders with the local chamber of commerce or something like that, we're not charging for that one because we know it's ideal customers. And then at the end of that one, we might have, a meat and cheese tray and some beers or something else just to keep the conversation going and just kind of take that hospitality to another level. We've also had groups from retirement homes, and some people are like, why would you invite a group from a retirement home to tour your facility? Like, they're not our ideal customer avatar, right? But we look at it as like, well, they're looking for something cool to do. They love that behind the scenes. We get great stories, from when they were working, and, some of them were, entrepreneurs and things like that. But we also know like it's a good community thing, and those people are going to be out and about in the community, and any extra word of mouth is always good, publicity and good word of mouth. So we love like everything. So there's not like any group we turn down. It's like, if you want to come tour, whether you own a business, you're an ideal customer of ours, or whether you're a preschooler or someone in first grade in Cub Scouts or, a retirement group, like we're taking everyone and like, come see it. We want to show off what we're doing here. We want to educate people on the process of what we're doing and how it's done. And the more, the merrier to us. That is the best and easiest word of mouth that we can get.
Yeah. And those preschoolers, they could come back in 15, 20 years and say, I remember when Tom showed me around and I just haven't stopped thinking about apparel decoration. And this is what I want to be when I grow up. So, you could get those hires at a young age. I think it's always great to show the younger generation that there's a career path in the industry. So start them really young, preschool. Sure. Yeah. Okay, so you're wearing your Shirt Lab shirt, I see. You are co-founder with Marshall Atkinson and Ali Banholzer. Can you tell our listeners, what Shirt Lab is, why people should get involved, upcoming events?
Yeah, so we started Shirt Lab in 2018, and it was a way to put on some educational events for the industry with a primary focus on sales and marketing. And the idea there was let's bring in different experts outside of the industry who specialize in sales and marketing. Let's bring in some people in the industry that are just absolutely crushing it and doing a great job in a specific area, and host events around the country, both a live event and a virtual event. And really just not only continually build the education to make everybody better, but also build a community where we can collaborate, we can lean on one another for advice, tips, tricks, everything else, so we can all grow and we can grow the industry together. So since we started in 2018, we've seen just amazing things happen with the people involved, the people that have been coming to all the events, the people that are in our membership, which is Shirt Lab Tribe. And really it's all right, how do we help answer the questions? How do we keep innovating and moving things forward? How do we minimize the hard learning mistakes or the, oh crap, I just wasted a ton of money by doing it that way. I could have asked somebody else and had some other resources to lean on for that. So it's just been amazing to see, like I said, the growth of the people that are involved, the growth of the industry, and just that openness and the collaboration and friendships that it's fostered as well.
Yeah, it's a really great networking opportunity, and there's so many different layers to it. You can join the tribe on a membership basis. You can attend events. I think so next year you'll have 2 in person. Will you have a live event or a virtual event next year as well?
Yeah.
Great. So yeah, I've been to the events, and it has been nice to see the growth within the group, but also the individual businesses. I feel like they've grown so much too, the people who are involved. And I just think that there's the value and power in networking, and then also just finding that tribe, as it's called, the community of people. Well, Tom, your business growth is certainly aspirational for many other printers, and it's been great, hearing from the basement to where you are now. Do you have any, final tips for our listeners who are looking to expand, considering, bringing DTF in-house? Anything you want to share about how to maybe get to where you are today?
Yeah, just, try different things, lean on others in the industry. The cool thing is, when I first started in the industry, I felt like a lot more closed doors, where I would try to call up or go visit other shops. And it was there was this big secret of what was going on behind the door and in the back room. And now with, the online communities and everything else, and just being active in going to events and the trade shows and everything else, don't be afraid to reach out, make those connections with the vendors and all the suppliers and your peers and everybody else in the industry, because that's the cool thing that I've seen, over the last 5 or more years, is all of a sudden the doors aren't closed anymore. The doors are open, and it's come check out our shop. Come, I'm happy to teach you. I'm happy to learn. And in seeing that collaboration and everything else, it makes it really fun. And so don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid of asking, what others are doing and seeing what they're doing and all the other things in between. Because once you kind of put yourself out there and dive into the community of the industry, that's where all the growth begins, and that's where a lot of the fun happens.
I couldn't agree more. All right, before we go, where can everyone find you? Shirt Lab, 1-800 T-shirts, all the things.
So all of our handles are at 1-800 T-shirts or at Shirt Lab, and it's shirtlablive.com, or just look us up on Facebook, the group Shirt Lab.
Perfect. All right, well, thanks for joining us, Tom.
Awesome. Thanks, Adrian. It's been my pleasure.
Yeah, we'll catch you on the next episode of the DTF Printing Podcast. In the meantime, head to DTF.com to discover new ways to grow your print business. Thanks for listening.